Yes. Yes, we're gonna do this right here. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chelsea and you're watching Chelsea Sang. Today we're going to be doing a volume 1 review of Blackgaurd. It is by Ryo Hanada, the same mangaka that did Devil's Line, and I am a huge Devil's Line fan. And when I saw this, I knew I was going to get it, so I just picked up volumes 1 and 2, and I'm already hooked, I'm gonna be honest. It was right off the bat. For a quick summary, so in 2030, humans decide to go to a planet and they bring back this disease. So now the world is infested with these creatures called shoujo. They eat human flesh. And people get infected with the virus when they are bitten by shoujo, and then they turn into shoujo themselves. So the story follows Minami Nanao, and he's known as the Blackgaurd. So he's a part of the guard, and who is basically their job to defend the city against shoujo, and he's like really strong. People know him as like this fearless person who, like, you know, just doesn't care on the battlefield, and he has like the highest kill rate when it comes to killing these shoujo. Amongst like all his peers, he's like, you know, top of the top. However, he has this illness called Morbius C. I don't know if it's Morbius C or Morbius SI, but it's basically a mental illness that gives him these, like, it's different for everybody, but for him it gives him these suicidal inclinations. So for him, the only reason why, in the beginning, like when you meet him, the only reason why he fights is that so he can die. You know, like he is literally looking forward to one of these shoujos to just like take him out on the battlefield. So that's why he is so fearless when he goes, you know, into fight. But then things start to change when the guard company that he works for decides that he's being too reckless and they can't afford to lose him. So they send him Miyagi Chris to join his one-man reserve unit. Now they're a pair of two, and Chris's job is to make sure that Minami stays alive. Okay, so that's kind of the basic situation of like how it opens, and so far I'm feeling good about it. All right, so overall thoughts on reading volume 1. Minami's like a really interesting character. Strangely from him though, he kind of has this kind of blank, kind of zombie-esque vibe about him. He kind of gives me a Young Justice Superboy type of vibe, minus the anger issues and the need for Superman's validation, you know, put that aside. But like he kind of gives me like a little like test tube baby a little bit, you know, like grown baby who doesn't really know or understand certain things, doesn't really interact with people unnecessarily, you know. So there is some stuff to unpack with that and why he is that way, which I think is going to come out a little bit later. But you can tell like right off the bat there is more than like what he appears to be. So the same can also be said for a lot of the characters that we do meet in volume 1. And they're all kind of like just mysterious enough that you want to keep digging, because I think every single person that we do meet that like I guess becomes Minami's kind of like inner circle, you can tell they each have a story, you know, which is good because it means that like we are going to keep developing some like actually full-fledged characters, which is great. And I think it's really going to help the story towards the end. One of the things that that is reminiscent of Devil's Line a little bit is that like you're also given a character who is also asking the same questions as you and kind of like discovering who Minami is at the same time you are. I think that's something that that also happened in Devil's Line. So you're kind of like, for me, that I noticed. So you're kind of both discovering and like figuring out this person at the same time. So in some parts you're like discovering Minami through Chris's perspective. And like Chris also wants to know the same things that you're curious about too. So it's like, you know, pretty cool. I always enjoy when there's something like that happening, because it feels like I'm being acknowledged by the author a little bit. But anyway, immediately, one of the things that you do notice when you do read Blackgaurd is that there is a lot of talk about death and suicide, and for some people that could be like a bit of a trigger, but you immediately expect it to be like really heavy going in, but there are moments of relief and lightness that is kind of like pushed in here. As more is revealed throughout this story, from what I can kind of tell, there is going to be more that really dives into the reasons why Minami is like that, and I feel like it has a little bit more to do than the illness that he has. But I feel like we'll eventually get there. And I think it's like the whole suicide thing isn't just used as like a plot device, you know? It is, we have like characters really questioning, I guess, the idea of the whole thing as well, and several characters at that, because I feel like from what I have picked up so far, you can tell that it has touched the like suicide and that specific mental illness that Minami has touched several characters, and I feel like it's gonna develop into something like kind of deep, you know, a little bit later down. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And an additional layer that I found super interesting is that the shoujo characters, the creatures that are in here, they are these kind of monkey type characters that they kind of look like aliens a little bit, but they are kind of like this, like their character design kind of calls back to folklore with these other like monkey like yokai that they seem to be based on. Although it seems like it's more of like a loose interpretation. One interesting thing is that they, like, according to folklore, they can be killed by like a blessed sword, and our main character Minami's weapon of choice is also a sword. So there is a little bit of something there, and I do wonder if it's going to be something like that becomes a little bit more later down, because it also, I'm not gonna spoil it, no. I'm not gonna give away too much, but that is something that I noticed, and I always love a little extra layer of something, you know, like dropped onto, like plopped onto a story. So basically by the end of volume 1, where we meet our solo guard Minami, who no longer becomes solo, you know, suddenly has a rival who seems to be like kind of void of emotion and seems to have some kind of vendetta against Minami, but that also has something to do more with his issues. So we're gonna have to see where that kind of goes. And then we have the beginning of a new mission, and then him being placed on this team that kind of changes his dynamic from being like, within volume 1 he's like a solo person, and then he's a pair, and now he's a part of a larger team. So it's like we kind of see him in different spaces and have to watch how he, I guess, acclimates to each one, and see how that in turn affects his I guess well-being, you know. But in short, he really just ends up getting a whole lot more people closer to him and wanting to keep him alive. So also, you know, I'm liking it. I really am. Okay. So one of the things that it reminds me of is Devil's Line, and I know I've said that a lot throughout the whole video, but I absolutely love Devil's Line, and I think, and of course it is the same author, so there are some connections, some things that just feel familiar with both, but it kind of feels like the Devil's Line vibe, and Kaiju number 8 kind of like had a baby a little bit. And I don't hate it. It also kind of gives me a slight a positive vibe, because we're in this kind of post-apocalyptic situation. We have people turning into these creatures who are getting bitten, like specific people whose job is to kind of fight, you know. So that's also a pretty interesting turn as well. And it also gives me a little bit of Psychopaths vibe too. So with Psychopaths, I think specific things like how when we do get into Psychopaths, it is a kind of like advanced society with like a lot of developed technology and stuff. So like even though the city, the Japan that they're living in Blackgaurd, is supposedly this like post-apocalyptic world, we're still in, it's not in ruin, you know. They still have this advanced technology where it's either that they haven't completely fallen to ruin, or they fell into ruin and they've gotten back to a place where they are still developed. So they have like high-end like artificial intelligence and stuff that like, you know, will feed you, and like you're like a home robot, you know, like that type of stuff. So it's in the future, but it's still post-apocalyptic. So I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but it is something that I really that crossed my mind too, which is also why my mind did immediately jump to Psychopath. So it is a lot like that, minus the fundamental philosophical nature of that Psychopath story in general, you know. But then again, that something like that I sense it coming just a little bit. I'm looking forward to that too. So it's more so the future techie and then kind of like the social order type of vibe that I feel coming from Blackgaurd, that kind of really brings me back to Psychopaths. But yeah, so I'm definitely going to keep reading this. As soon as I'm done with them, I'm actually going to go jump into volume 2. And I do need to look up to see, and I think volume 3 is going to be coming out in August. So I'm really ready to like keep diving in as well. From what I see so far, I'm into Blackgaurd. And if any of this stuff interests you, I really do recommend checking it out. And if you also like a vampire story with a twist of reality to it, I would definitely also recommend checking out Devil's Line as well, because Ryo Hanada is bae, and honestly, she's really like top on my like list of authors that I really enjoy reading, and I look forward to adding more of her titles to my collection. So please, if you've heard of Blackgaurd, if you've heard of Devil's Line, let me know below. Thank you so much for dropping in. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to all my new subscribers for coming through the channel, and all my subscribers who have been with me since the beginning. Thank you as well. I'll see you in the next video.